I was interested, Adam, to read through not just the content of the bill and what it will provide for, but also the idea that New York did this first. What do you make of it?
Well, what I make of it is we know there's concern among parents about kids and teens and social media, and I think that's understandable. Unfortunately, I think that in this case, they went after the wrong target, which was algorithms. I think they got into their head, and a variety of critics have focused on algorithmic feeds as being kind of a problem here. And so the bill, as you said, bans algorithmic feeds in services like TikTok and Instagram, YouTube by default for teenagers, unless their parents opt them into those algorithmic feeds. And just the problem with this is that I think that chronological feeds are actually going to be a worse experience for teenagers. They're more likely to surface, the last post that might be spammy, clickbait, hate, harassment. And algorithms are actually providing a pretty important role in making these feeds better for teenagers. Usually they're allowing them to curate their experiences. And Common Sense Media, which actually, ironically, is a supporter of this bill, actually had a survey of teenagers about 2 weeks ago where they said most teenagers are liking, or actually use curation in their feeds. And unfortunately, this bill kind of will do away with that completely by default. So unfortunately, I think it's well-intentioned, but it goes after the wrong target, in my view, and I think is likely to make feeds worse for teens.
Adam, the Chamber of Progress, of which you lead, is basically an industry group, but
Right.
your work is to look at public policy and make sure that it is impactful to society in a fair way. So you think that they went about this in the wrong way. How would you have done it differently?
Well, I think what we're starting to see is, for example, this week in California, the governor, Governor Newsom, talked about, well, maybe schools should have a blanket rule against phones in school. They're proving to be a distraction. I think there's pros and cons of a policy like that. But one thing about those policies is they're not getting involved in regulating platforms at the speech level. One of the things we've seen, and again, New York's not the first state to do a bill related to social media and kind of content. They've gone about it a little bit differently. But one of the problems that all of these laws have faced, and now this has happened in California and Arkansas and Ohio, every single time state legislators say, well, no, we're not regulating the content of these services, we're regulating their design, right? And that's different. That therefore it doesn't run afoul of the First Amendment. Every single time so far, courts have said, no, that's actually not true. You are regulating the platform speech. And I expect the same will be true here. So I think we have kind of this dynamic where this bill feels really great to Governor Hochul and policymakers who pushed it, but it will, in my view, inevitably be struck down in court. And then I think, we'll be right back where we started from. So unfortunately, I don't see a lot of legislators saying, look, how can we approach this in a way that is really like constitution-proof, legally sound? They've asserted that it is, but I don't think this will be in the end.
Adam, I want to go back to the latest on TikTok that our editor, Mike Shepard, was giving us from D.C. a few minutes ago. This is not a new conversation for you or I. The idea that, TikTok and its users have frustrations, that they feel they put forward technological and policy solutions that would have allowed TikTok to continue to operate in this country. And they feel the only option that they were given by Congress was a ban. What did you make of the court filing which hit last night?
Well, I think what TikTok is trying to do in their court filing is they're trying to address what's called sort of the least restrictive means, right? Which is to say that if you're concerned about TikTok and Chinese connections, for example, is there some other way the government could have gone about addressing that concern short of passing the law that it did? And that's what their Project Texas is all about. And that is legally relevant at this stage because that is an actual principle under the law. And so I completely understand why TikTok is doing it. I have a concern about TikTok and Chinese control, but I understand that. And ultimately, right. I actually think it's kind of a jump ball. I think whether or not TikTok succeeds in its legal challenge is truly a legal jump ball. And so it's completely understandable to me that they would make that argument.
But what is the Chamber of Progress's position on whether TikTok should be able to operate in the United States?
We haven't taken an organizational position on it. I think that I share a lot of concern that this is a really unprecedented situation where an app that is so popular, frankly, has this nexus and really is obligated to advance the Chinese government's interests. That's always been a concern for me, more than the data concern, more just kind of like the idea that, like, look, after Russia invaded Ukraine, we look back and said, why did we allow RT, Russia's propaganda network, on our cable systems? And I think I feel the same way about this.